What's going on, Sports Wars? This is Ryan with RK Outpost and geeksandgamers.com, and we had a lot of coverage in the lead up to the NBA trade deadline yesterday. We even did a stream that last hour or so. It was pretty fun seeing the moves that happened, the flurry right at the end, including a huge one that we'll talk about just a little bit here. But this article I thought was interesting. 5 need-to-know takeaways from the 2020 NBA trade deadline. And it doesn't necessarily break down each and every thing, but what it does is kind of look at the overview and what it might mean for the NBA, not only this year, but kind of going forward. So let's get into it. And the first one, Timberwolves accomplish Minnesota impossible. And that is this contract that Andrew Wiggins was on. Consider a variation on Michael Corleone's Dark Wisdom in The Godfather Part 2. If anything in this life is certain, if history has taught us anything, it's that you can trade anyone. For years, thinking around the NBA used to be no contract is bad if it can be traded. Well, now with Andrew Wiggins being shipped to Golden State, version 2 is now any contract can be traded. And we did talk about that. Now, it took Minnesota having to give up some picks, give up a first round and a second round pick to get D'Angelo Russell in return to have Golden State take on that contract. And at the end of the day, I do think that it's a better position for both people. I think in Golden State, Andrew Wiggins has to be a chance to be a better version of himself. I think in Minnesota, D'Angelo Russell has a chance to be a better version of himself. The guy that's running it with Karl-Anthony Towns in Minnesota. So we'll see what happens with that in the end. 2, room for the big man keeps shrinking. And this is especially interesting when you think about the fact that last night the Houston Rockets beat the Los Angeles Lakers when the tallest guy on the floor was like 6'6" for them. And it totally threw off the Lakers. They kept trying to attack the rim, attack the mismatches, but it wasn't working because in the NBA, if you can play small, you do a lot of things like limit your turnovers. You're a little bit faster. You're a little bit quicker. Yeah, sure, you've got a weakness down low defensively. But other than that, you know where your weakness is and you know what you can do to try to overcome that. Whereas when you literally just play with a bunch of fast guys, you can do a lot to the other team. And we saw that. Now, is this going to be a trend in the NBA for years to come? Not sure. However, I do agree with this. Room for the big man keeps shrinking, at least the traditional big man. And they're talking about Andre Drummond. So Andre Drummond took to Twitter soon after he'd been dealt to Cleveland, but instead of dealing in hashtags, he should have been more concerned with toe tags. The deal had an unmistakable whiff of the continued death spiral of traditional NBA centers. Not only does what Drummond does is quite impressive, pounding the offensive glass for multiple chances and routinely posting 15-15s. He takes up space defensively. But guys of his size and skill have been out of fashion for several seasons, and with most teams mimicking Golden State Houston style, the market is largely dried up. You did see Houston move on from Clint Capella. That's why they didn't have a center last night. He goes to the Atlanta Hawks. So obviously there is still a market. Some people still want to play that traditional way. Karl-Anthony Towns in Minnesota is still kind of that a big, but he can shoot from the outside though. So that is the thing. You have to have range now, almost, if you're going to play center in the NBA to kind of spread it out. They talk a little bit about Iggy. Expect more no play, all pay larks like Iggy's. And I think that Miami paid way too much for Andre Iguodala in that trade for him. Well, not so much in the trade, but they gave him a $30 million 2-year extension. There's no way Iguodala deserves to be making $15 million a year, in my opinion. But they did say with the way it went, Iguodala just said, yeah, I'm not going to play. I'm just going to do whatever I want. You can see here, look at CJ McCollum. Bro, you're a legend, Andre Iguodala. My guy sat half the season, spent time with family, promoted his book, sharpened up his post-retirement plans, and cashed out. Respect, bruh. And yeah, all he basically said was, yeah, I'm not going to play. You're just going to have to trade me. I don't want to play unless it's for a contender. And eventually, what did the Grizzlies do? They traded him away. I do think you're going to see more stuff like that now that it's been successful with Iguodala, who got overpaid and hasn't played all year. It's disgusting. And the winners of the Lakers-Clippers showdown was the Clippers. The Clippers are the ones that acquired Marcus Morris from the Knicks. They had to give up Mo Harkless. They also got Isaiah Thomas from the Wizards as part of that deal, whereas the Lakers just stood pat. The Knicks really wanted Kyle Kuzma. They were not willing to part with him. So that was basically the deal breaker for the Knicks. They moved on to the Clippers. The Clippers have improved their roster. There's no doubt about that. And I do think that when it comes down to it, that Clips roster is looking better than the Lakers. And that's, I think, what we're going to see when it comes down to postseason, when everybody's playing all the time. And then last one, stand pat or do something. What's the winning play? And this kind of goes into a little bit what teams, the teams that are looking good. So people like Milwaukee, Toronto, Boston, Denver, OKC, and Lakers. Since things are going well, why would you want to mess with it? So don't mess with it just for the sake of messing with it. They have this really interesting quote from Larry Bird, kind of explaining why the guy who's in charge of the Indiana Pacers, Kevin Pritchard, didn't make any moves because he didn't feel like you should have to just to be forced to. Larry Bird was like, I don't want to make trades in the middle of a season. I don't want to really hurt people's lives. I don't want to uproot families. You can't do a trade to look like you're doing things. The truth is, behind the scenes, there's just as much work when there's no activity on the front lines. So I thought that was a really interesting thing too. Now me, for someone who's a Bulls fan, is really freaking frustrated that they did nothing. They didn't do anything to improve their team. They didn't do anything to move off of assets, to acquire more assets, to make their team better in the future. They just sat there like bitches. And there's a lot of bad teams that do that. And if you're bad to mediocre in the NBA, what's the point? Like, if you're not putting yourself in a position to get a top 3 pick, and you're also not putting yourself in the position to be, anywhere near playoff contention, then what are you doing? And that's the question a lot of people have with their teams right now, including my Chicago Bulls. But I thought this was an interesting kind of breakdown of the bird's eye view of what a lot of this trade deadline meant to the NBA. But what do you guys think? What do you think about specific trades? Do you think that the center's basically done? People like Andre Drummond, as good and as talented as they are, is it over for them? People like him, people like Clint Capella, a couple years, are they going to be gone? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you smash the like button, subscribe to Sports Wars, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll talk to you guys later.